Today we're talking all about Zoomtopia 2023. So this is our event recap webinar. My name is Jackson Root. Joining me today is Scott Krickerberg, our head of strategic alliances, and Mr. Adrian Boyd, our sales solution engineer at DTEN. We're gonna have a really fun webinar today. We're gonna recap Zoomtopia. We're gonna talk a little bit about our perspectives, looking at the keynote, some of the new announcements there. I might throw a poll at you in the webinar, so keep an eye out for that. We've got some new videos we're gonna show. We're going to talk about new products that we debuted at the show floor. It's just going to be a lot of fun. So thank you for joining us. Before we jump into it, one thing, we do have chat disabled just as a best practice in webinars. Please ask questions, right? So use the Q&A function. I'm going to be throwing some shout outs during the webinar just to use the Q&A. Any questions at all, right? This is a really great way to let us know that maybe we're going through something too fast. Or maybe you have some questions specifically about like a new Zoom Rooms feature or something on D10 side. So please absolutely ask questions. It really helps us out. It makes for a much better webinar for everybody. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the agenda for this morning. So we're going to jump into some perspectives on the keynote, right? So they talked a lot about some really great new things coming to Zoom and Zoom Rooms. And the Zoom platform overall, particularly the desktop client, which are super cool, very exciting. What does that mean for D10? What does that mean for D10 users like yourselves? We're then going to jump into the expo floor. So we've got some pretty cool shots that we grabbed at the show. We're going to talk about what we saw there. We're going to talk about what was in the D10 booth in case you weren't able to swing by. And then we're going to go through some of the new products that we had on the show floor. So we're going to talk about the D7X. We're going to talk about the D7X Dual 75, which is super cool. The new View Pro system. We're going to talk about Mi Pro, some of the things we're doing with Mi Pro on the show floor. And we're going to talk about the Mate PoE, which is kind of a sleeper product. If you have a Zoom Rooms right now, if you have any certified Zoom Rooms appliance, the Mate Pro, you can immediately pair that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Really great scheduling and controller solution there. And of course, Q&A. So we can do Q&A throughout the webinar. I love making it more engaging for everybody. And we'll have time at the end as well for some, if you have questions remaining. So don't be shy. Also, too, I will say this. I think all three of us are fighting head colds. It's that time of year. So bear with us. My voice is definitely an octave lower this morning. So let's go ahead and jump right in. And I'm going to throw a poll at you guys right off the bat. I want to know, if you watch the keynote, what Zoom features are you most excited about? So here we go. Here's our polls. Let's go ahead and launch this one. So they covered some pretty broad strokes in the keynote. So we talked about the new AI companion, Zoom AI companion, super cool. New Zoom docs, right? That's interesting. That kind of came out of left field for a lot of us, I think. New EX and CX enhancements. Certainly that's something we're going to be talking about this morning. And then ecosystem updates also too was pretty interesting. So love to see those responses come in. Right. Pretty cool. We're gonna I'm gonna leave this up for another minute or so, and then we're gonna compare this with what Zoom posted in their blog because they asked the same question. So I'm interested to see from our audience here at the webinar versus what Zoom was getting from folks at the conference. So last call for any final poll responses. I really appreciate you guys' participation in this, so thank you. All right, let's take a look. So AI companion at 43% is leading the pack there. Zoom docs coming in at 21%. EX and CX enhancements 21% as well. So pretty cool. AI companion being number one, Zoom docs and EX CX coming in second, and then ecosystem updates coming in last. Very interesting. So let's now take a look at what Zoom had. So interesting, AI companion was their second spot, Zoom docs being their first. So pretty interesting numbers there. Looks like we're pretty aligned, although it makes sense, right? This is a Zoom Rooms webinar. Zoom docs definitely being more of a Zoom platform desktop client type thing. So makes perfect sense. Very cool. Thank you guys for your input on that. I really appreciate it. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the keynote. So a lot of really great things were announced and presented during the keynote. Scott, I'm going to hand this off to you to talk a little bit about this new Zoom ecosystem and what it means for Zoom Rooms and D10.
Yeah, definitely. So, we got the next glimpse at the ever expanding Zoom universe, right? And the platform, how it continues to release and develop new tools. And, I think it's really exciting for our audience, for people that are interested in the technology, that are deploying the devices, because it's really starting to blend the three main aspects that we think workers expect, as they return to the office or they're kind of folded into a hybrid strategy, right? And we see it kind of as productivity, as a group. We know that these documents, spreadsheets, things that you have to develop are kind of into productivity. It takes time, right, to create that stuff. And I think time is starting to equal productivity. So if things like AI companion and meeting summaries and all these things can give back more time to a worker, we're checking that off as productivity because the expectation is that they're going to use that time, right, to be productive and produce more results, drive revenue, complete projects. So we're starting to see, productivity getting mixed in with the meeting tools. So now you are communicating, you're collaborating, you're in these planning meetings, customer meetings, right? And you need the Zoom rooms, in these spaces, right, to help you with that aspect of it. And then there's the personal aspect, right? We want the adoption to be really high. We want users to, be fearless with the technology and know that an environment that they're in at home can also translate as they return to the office and walk into a room. So you're starting to see these three pillars all kind of merge into an environment that not just the software, but also the hardware can help bring right to life and make this a real thing. So, in the past, you've seen kind of what we do kind of live over here in this circle, right? Where we have workspace reservations. You can use the device for rooms, right? Where you have the camera and the microphone. That's bringing that meeting experience, to be seamless across the board. We can also deploy the digital signage over the top of it. But what I think is really great with AI companion, right, is now we're starting to increase, more parts of this funnel. So the meeting, the scheduler, all of these things are starting to get incorporated into the rooms experience. So you can use the D7X device to run Zoom phone and place those calls, elevate them up to a meeting. We're going to incorporate more than just team chat into that environment in the scheduler. Right now, we're starting to look at blending productivity tools. So, the idea is to kind of eliminate laptops and some of those extra things that everyone's so reliant on. Imagine re-entering the office with just your mobile device. You can scan in a QR code in a workspace reservation system or a specific endpoint. It'll authenticate you. It'll bring your contacts, your mail, your calendar for that day, all into that environment. And then, so now you have that personal aspect, you have it mixing with some of the tools for the meeting. But then this last step, I think, in the total convergence is to spit all that out, right, into something that equals productivity. So we're starting to see Zoom release, right? They're kind of forward thinking on what they're missing to kind of complete that experience. And that's where you start to see things like docs and whiteboards and notes and clips starting to get incorporated into the situation, right? Where the AI companions running over the top, you're able to export that entire meeting with a summary with next steps, right? It will assign people during the call on what their next steps are, spit that out into something like a Zoom document where your meeting summary, a clip of the meeting, any whiteboards that you created, right, are there and present. And then that's shareable. And just like a whiteboard, you can recall that and bring that into the next meeting, share it via chat or send it out to the group. So I think that's really something that is, starting to merge into a total experience when you interact with the device. And of course, with our D7X, our Mi Pro, we've been designing these devices, with a look around the curve, trying to future-proof, your hardware investments that you make now to keep incorporating all these new features from the software side and create that consistent environment. So, once we complete kind of, the rest of this, obviously we're driving webinars, right? We're doing contact center, virtual agent. So I think what you're trying to see is, starting to see this original group we were in kind of expand right out and start to encompass, all aspects of this and being able to still drive that experience within the Zoom room. So I think the direction Zoom is going in, is exactly what the hybrid worker is starting to expect, right? Which is consistency, it's clarity, and then you start to see the adoption and all the productivity start to increase.
So cool. Yeah, and I think a lot of this, we're going to talk a little bit more later, but talking about that consistent experience, right? Whether you're in the rooms or you're in the desktop client at home for hybrid workers, being able to tie all those different touch points together and have that similar experience across all those different spaces. Right, that's definitely something that we do really well at DTEN. Well, thanks, Scott. That was really insightful. So let's jump into some of the new stuff that we talked about. Some of the new productivity tools. Zoom Companion AI was pretty cool, right? Obviously, from our poll information, you guys found that pretty exciting. So did I, and I've already played with it quite a bit, not only on my desktop client, but also on the D7X that we had the show floor. So it was like immediately they announced it, and then immediately we had it running on the show floor, which is really, really interesting. So, right, there's a lot of cool things that are baked into the Zoom desktop client, just the Zoom meeting experience. They're coming with Companion AI, like being able to summarize Zoom meetings so that you can look back at the Zoom meeting. It'll automatically chapterize parts of the meeting so that somebody who couldn't make it doesn't have to watch the entire recording. They can just skip to those relevant parts. I think that's a really smart use of AI. And I'm certainly excited about it because there are a lot of meetings that I want to be in that I can't be in all the time. And then really, of course, Zoom Docs, super cool. Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
No, it's just more accurate, I think, than you would expect, as far as the summarization, who follow-ups are assigned to. So, what I started to notice using it in the last month or so, is when it spits out, it literally calls out your name and the things that you volunteered to do. So, it's harder to get off the hook for some of these things in the meeting. But it also, is keeps you highly organized, right? And, a lot of us, unfortunately, power Zoom users are used to balancing maybe more than one meeting at a time. I think that it really is, some of us live in a world where we're booked twice, 3 times, we've got meetings stacked. So to be able to come back and kind of refresh on the topics that were there, some things that, are on your plate to follow up on, I definitely think that productivity equals time, right? Gets a huge boost because you're able to focus and start executing without going back and figuring out, what was discussed or taking notes on paper. So I think it's a huge step in giving time back, and we're all hoping that equals productivity.
Yeah, and speaking of productivity, right, as I mentioned, the new Companion AI is built into the whiteboard. It's already live on the D7X. It's something available on the advanced whiteboard, not the classic one. It's really nice to be able to just like create a table, throw a prompt in there, and it'll populate with information. It's kind of a nice way to sort of leapfrog that collaboration session.
Yeah, kind of a Kickstarter, right, where it can take that information from the meeting and spit out into things, that let your team kind of engage and get to work quicker. So I definitely think this is a highly smart way to start to kick off Companion, right? Because that's really what it is. It's like it's your assistant, right? It helps you keep track of your day, keeps you organized. So to see it so quickly move into a collaboration aspect, right? And to populate a board like that, I think it's, even solidifying the need for collaboration devices, right, in your tech stack.
And the nice thing about it is when you look at certainly there's been some early on when Zoom kind of made these announcements about AI and the things they were doing, and people kind of got a little um, frustrated, especially when the TOC and the TOS came out. But really, the AI that Zoom is kind of input in their software it's not a passive environment, it's an active environment. So as users, as administrators, it is something that's in the software. DTEN products can take advantage of it, but you really have to turn it on. You really have to educate your users to really maximize it and to use it and get that productivity that Scott was talking about.
Yeah, and like you said, the clarity, right, is kind of around enablement, right? So when someone says, well, I need clarity on all this, it's when to use these things, right? How to use them effectively. And what's great about this, I think, is, out of any option, it's a little pricey to deploy AI in an organization, especially when you add it up with the enablement and the onboarding. And once you try to stack this, I think third party, it gets expensive, and maybe a lot of enterprise or businesses, they don't have the budget assigned to this yet. But with Zoom, it's free, right? And that's the incredible part, is it's included, right, in the prices you're already paying. So all you have to do is tackle that small spend of how do we get people engaged and enabled, right, and turn them on and get them trained. So it's a very quick way to incorporate AI into in your companies and your users' tech stack without a lot of expense and cost up front to get that done.
Let's take a little look at what was happening on the show floor. So some of these photos taken by our team here at DTEN. And I'll talk through some of these photos that we're seeing here really quickly. So Scott, I know you actually had quite a few presentations at Zoomtopia, right? So on the top left corner here, we're seeing a picture of you with our head of marketing, Nia Celestin. And you guys are talking all about, I forget, what was the topic of this discussion?
It was really the technology for spaces and having a complete full hybrid work strategy, right? Which is something at DTEN we've been talking about already for, it feels like, 2 years at least. And it's always been a look around the corner, right, around the curve. Even some of our sessions have been entitled "A Look Around the Curve," right? What hybrid work should look like. And over the last 2 years, we've just seen these pieces of the puzzle start to fit together, and this to be a real deployable strategy, right, for businesses and education. So we talked about the same thing, I think, that Zoom had a big focus on this year, which is hybrid work and return to office.
Yeah, you could see it was like packed. I don't think they realized how packed these discussions were going to get, which was amazing. It's great. But you can just see from this photo, I mean, it was like I had to stand 4 or 5 rows out. It's like you guys were playing live music or something. But yeah, so also looking just a few more pictures of just the show floor itself. I thought it was really cool the way that they laid it out. It's really well organized. You can see in the top right photo there, that's sort of if you're walking down the main aisle of the show floor. And we're on the right side there next to the CX side. And then bottom left, you can see it had these really cool seating areas. Behind them is the stage you're seeing also in that photo in the top left, where they're giving presentations throughout. And then bottom right is just a team photo. So DTENers at the booth. So we're gonna take a deeper look at the booth in a minute here, but you can see all of our exhibiting crew there. So we had quite a few folks that were able to attend the show, which was amazing because it was local to most of us. So everybody from our CEO to our CFO came out. All of our heads of our departments were there. It was incredible to meet with everybody who came to the booth. If you're in the call right now, thank you for coming by. It's amazing to connect with you face to face. So thank you for that. Booth number 34 at DTEN. It was packed, which was awesome. So throughout the show, we had folks in there looking at the new the D7X Dual 75, checking out View Pro, running Smart Gallery. We had the DTEN Me Pro, you can see in the foreground there running workspace reservation in kiosk mode. I think we're sending calls out to Adrian. Every now and then he'd get a random call from the show floor. So super cool. I had so much fun at this event. So here's kind of a more in-depth look of what we had in the booth. So here's an empty shot, right, without a bunch of folks in there. I took this after hours. So we had the View Pro right there in the foreground running kiosk mode, workspace reservation, which is super cool. So you could walk up to this device, touch the screen as if you were walking into the lobby of a building, and then reserve a workspace or a meeting room. And that worked really, really well. It was so intuitive. Folks just kind of knew exactly how to use it, which is really cool to see that.
And everything you're seeing here leverages a unique aspect of the Zoom ecosystem. So not only is it Zoom Rooms for touch, but it's also leveraging Zoom's AI algorithms for video, for audio, maximizing things like control and scheduler, Zoom's third-party native room controls, kiosks, workspace reservations. And then on top of that, there's a layer of D10 productivity and AI in our hardware that what we're ultimately doing is we're giving Zoom some of the best audio and video to maximize all of that technology and software built into the Zoom experience.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks, Adrian. That you know, it's funny, when you were talking just now, there was a question that came up about what's even the relationship with D10 and Zoom. I love that question. And Adrian, I think you touched on it a little bit too, right? So we're talking about not just Zoom Rooms, but it's a much larger experience.
Right. So D10, we're a hardware manufacturer, and what we do is we make hardware that runs someone else's software. So whether that be Zoom, which is where we started first, that's our primary love. Our hardware basically facilitates Zoom software, and we're also work with Microsoft and their Teams environment. But we really focus a lot of our development towards the Zoom experience. Zoom, as that experience, is a much more mature, robust environment right now. So a lot of the things we bring to the table with our hardware is leveraging Zoom, and Zoom dictates about 99% of how that hardware will function.
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the big strengths of us at D10 is we really allow Zoom Rooms and Zoom to take over the device. Right, so that is with our D7X series. That's with the Dual, the Me Pro, even the way View Pro operates, right? That's running Smart Gallery. There's some D10 smart framing that goes in there, but that works hand in hand with all of Zoom Rooms software that's baked right into the device. So thank you for asking that question. Fantastic segue. Let's talk a little bit more about some of these products too, right? I think that just kind of a more in-depth look at the solutions that we had in the booth. And when I say solutions, I mean, you know, you want to create a Zoom Rooms in your space. You're not sure exactly how you're going to deploy that. That's really where D10 comes into space, right? We create that endpoint so that you can engage with the Zoom Rooms meeting experience very, very easy, very intuitively. Just touch the screen to get started. On the left there, you see our D7X comes in 55 and 75 inches. This is really our flagship model right now. This is the one that you drop this in a room, you're out of the box and on the wall, and in your first meeting in like 15 or 20 minutes with a lot of our integrators that might be on the call right now. Very quick deployment.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about deployment of products, generally I like to say under 2 hours, because that also includes that installation time, getting it out of the box, getting it from the dock or into the room, putting in that infrastructure, whether that be electrical or networking, mounting a device to the wall, and then you add your provisioning licenses. So it can be extremely quick for users that have experienced D10 products before, but even new users who've never experienced D10 products before, they can have a system running very quickly. And that is kind of the whole spread of what we have hardware-wise. It covers a lot of different use cases and a lot of different room sizes.
Very cool. Yeah, we outlined a lot of those on this slide here. So, for example, the D7X Dual 75, really it shines in some of your medium to larger meeting spaces. One thing that's really cool about that device is that you have dedicated space on one side for whiteboarding presentations, and then on the other side, you can display up to 49 participants on that screen. because it's a 75-inch screen, you know, you could still see everybody very clearly. It's a 4K display. So this one's very new, right? We just came out with this. I think we debuted it at InfoComm over the summer, and it's available now. Just an amazing system for larger spaces. Why don't we jump right in to like a little bit more in depth on each one of these products. We're going to talk about the whole office here. This is a slide I like to use, just kind of frame it into context, right? You can see there's some hot space, some hot desks here, some of those phone booths. You've got some shared meeting spaces. You've got some commons areas. You've got a lobby there at the bottom. Let's jump right into a little bit about the D7X. So, as I mentioned before, this is really our flagship product, right? Throw this into a room. You walk up to the screen and you touch start to jump right into a meeting. So intuitive, it's super easy to use. Doesn't require a user manual at all. I mean, it's so easy. You don't have to have IT reset the room afterwards. Right, it's very flexible to install. You can put this on the wall. You can also mount it on a cart as a companion Zoom room, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's available as Windows or Android. So depending on what you prefer, right, you can pick which operating system you want the D7X to be running on. And then it's available 55, 75, and then the 75 dual. And of course, it is a fully Zoom certified appliance, as is everything that we're going to talk about in this webinar. So one thing that really shines on the D7X series is Smart Gallery. And Smart Gallery is so cool. Right, if you haven't used it, if you haven't been in a Zoom rooms that's running Smart Gallery, it's one of those things where once you turn it on, you're like, wow, how did I ever meet with anybody without this before? So it'll identify folks in the room. It'll divide them up into their own individual boxes, right? As you can see in this GIF that's running at the bottom. So there's the room view on the top right. It's identifying everybody. It's putting them into their own spaces there. And really the benefit here is that when you're in the meeting, you feel like you're getting more presence, because even if you're sitting farther back, even if you're sitting at the back of the room, it'll perfectly frame you in your box so that you have much more presence than just being a small person way at the back of the room. And then on the other end, right, so for folks that are calling in, like the gal you see in the top left, she feels like she has more presence because she's actually meeting eye to eye with everybody in space. She feels like she's actually part of the conversation rather than just calling in as a third wheel into a room. So it's much more immersive for everybody. It's equal presence. And it's also it's an AI powered system as well. Sorry, go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, so when we talk about technology in Zoom, like Smart Gallery, which is which Smart Gallery today is single camera, multi-focus framing, right? Multi-stream video with a single camera. So what we generally do with our product, with our 4K cameras, is even though Zoom, the max they top out at 1080p, we try to we use that 4K camera to maximize all those participants in the room to give you a nice, clear, what we call the passport headshot, which is generally about 320, 360p. So we're mathematically looking at everybody in space, trying to fit them in all nice and clean and clear. And when you start using these Smart Gallery technologies in Zoom, in those secondary windows, we're trying to fit as many participants, 8 per window. We generally can get up to 16, and it can differ depending on the number of participants in the room. Movement can become involved, placement of the participants in the table, and that's where we can talk about what our ViewPro cameras are ultimately going to be doing when you use things like Smart Gallery and in the future Intelligent Director.
Cool. Yeah, Intelligent Director is something we haven't even really talked about yet. Scott, I saw you came off mute. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, just around the D7X, right, and just to verify how unique, right, D10 is in the ecosystem. The D7X from the first generation to the third has always been the only dual, the dual purpose, dual iOS device available to a Zoom Room customer. So when you look at hardware in the ecosystem, a large majority of it is running on Android. Our D7X comes in a Windows IoT and an Android OPS option for our customers. So what's great about that is we get to continue to develop on Windows with Zoom, And the D7X is the only Windows device in the ecosystem that can deploy Smart Gallery at this moment. So just gives a ton of versatility, whether you're your IT department or whoever's managing devices in your organization, might be religious on Windows. They might be Android only. So it really allows us to come in and find products to fit all these use cases and give you options as far as not just platform, but on the compute.
So we had a quick question about our D7 product line. As Scott mentioned, we've had previous iterations. The D7X is the third iteration of the D7 series. If you're familiar, you might have a D7 Generation 1 or even a D7 Generation 2. Those products are still supported by D10. We will have firmware for them. But as Zoom has progressed with their software, there's going to be features that the Generation 1 and Generation 2 won't be capable of. And a lot of it has to do with processing power, these new AI features, improvements we've made to microphones and cameras. So as Zoom has developed and progressed with their software, we've had to upgrade our hardware back in to take advantage of those new features. So the Generation 1, Generation 2, they're still supported by us, but there may be some features in the future as Zoom continues to progress that will not be compatible with those devices.
Yeah, especially right now, the core features we're talking about, Adrian, like Smart Gallery is 100%, right? Still deployable.
Yep.
And
still deployable, still supported.
So.
Yep.
We have another question about Smart Gallery here, but more around the View Pros. So what we're looking at there, Rick, which we'll talk about, is multi-camera Smart Gallery, right? And that is also known as Intelligent Director. So when you do use the View Pros in the future, multi-camera, picking the best person in the room, angle, frame, feeding that with the AI into Zoom, that will be the Intelligent Director camera control, right, which continues to roll out on the Zoom software.
Awesome. I love it when the Q&A is driving the discussion. I think that makes for a really great webinar. So thank you guys again for all of your questions coming in. Definitely keep them coming. We're going to jump into View Pro a little bit more, right? We even have a world premiere of a video that we're going to show, which does talk about Smart Gallery too, which is super cool. But before we do, I think that we really should at least talk about the D7X and how it can be used as a companion Zoom room. This is something that we were showing in the booth at Zoomtopia. And it's so cool to deploy it this way. Scott, I know this is something that you've been obviously on our last webinar where we were at Zoom headquarters, right? It's something that you were talking a lot about with Morella.
Yeah. And being involved in this project since the beginning, right, with Companion Whiteboard, right, and seeing that continue to expand and become more feature rich. So one of the things about D10 is we're not always out to rip and replace a room that you already have. Our technology actually supplements that tech stack. It brings collaboration into an existing room where if you might not have had that in the past, it's super easy to roll in a D7X on a cart or mount it, and you actually use the same Zoom room license that's already in that room to pair an additional collaboration device into that environment. So we see a lot of customers using it on the heckler cart, right? Or mounting it on an adjacent wall, because that's what that's going to allow you to do is within Zoom rooms, if you share content, it's going to display on the touch device. If you start a whiteboard, it's going to display that on the touch device in the room. So you're not giving up your current display where your meeting gallery is located. The people are still present. What you're doing is annotating, sharing content, and collaborating on an additional device that's paired into the room. So when it started with Companion Whiteboard, we've now seen that expand into Companion Zoom rooms. And that allows you to bring an additional camera into the situation. So a lot of times when you're running multi-focus framing or Smart Gallery or your auto framing and cropping, sometimes the room view can be lost in that situation. So that additional camera can grab the full shot of the room, all the participants, right, and include that into your meeting and your gallery view. So it's a really, I say the early adopters are definitely in education. This allows the presenter to still be seen in the room on an additional camera as they're presenting, annotating, whiteboarding. But this is what the big upgrade is the whiteboard plus the camera. And that allows, you know, all of our devices to be considered as a new piece of tech in an existing room, and add people plus content, keep driving that collaboration aspect.
So I know this is a real Zoom and Zoom Rooms focused webinar, but you know, one thing too that's very cool about the D7X is that you really can select your platform choice at deployment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, flexibility in these times is key, right? For especially organizations, you know, that are planning and deploying their next phase of that hybrid work strategy, is just to be flexible. And we are following the customer suit here of allowing, you know, that dual environment platform on the device. So you can select either option, and we will put the image that you need onto that device over the air, and you're able to sign in with the license that your company currently uses and deploys.
So let's go ahead and jump into View Pro. View Pro is so cool. It's something that we came out with this year. It's brand new. If you have a current Gen D7X, it's so easy to deploy. You can just socket them right onto the sides of the device. They literally slide into place, and we're going to see. I'm going to throw a video at you guys in a minute, and you'll see how that all goes down. So D7X 55, 75, and then on the dual 75 system we're going to talk about in a minute, it's already included. So let's watch a quick video, and we'll talk a little bit more about View Pro.
We've designed our hybrid workplaces to do a great job of accommodating everyone, and we've come a long way. We found ways to stay connected, whether in the office, on the road, or at home. We innovated and pioneered new ways to embrace collaboration and inclusion. And now it's time to reinvent the way we see and are seen by each other. Introducing D10 View Pro. D10 View Pro is more than just another camera in the room. Unique in its class, D10 View Pro is a set of professional 4K cameras cleverly designed to capture in-room participants at eye level while dynamically adjusting for every space. Bring everybody into the room with clarity for each participant at distance. Unlike traditional PTZ cameras designed to capture an entire space with a single lens, D10 View Pro operates multiple lenses simultaneously to capture the room plus every participant clearly and in crisp resolution. Whether your room is short, narrow, long, or wide, harness cutting-edge camera technology and advanced AI to optimize coverage for every meeting. Get better, more natural, and more inclusive video meetings with D10 View Pro. Tailor your video meetings to capture what counts. D10 View Pro. Visit d10.com to find out more. Distributed by Starin.
Cool. So in webinars, I never quite know how that video is going to show up on the other end. So I hope that it was smooth enough for you guys. But
we got 95% pass on that one, so I'll take it. Yeah, that was good.
Cool. So that was world premiere of that video, by the way, guys. So such a brand new product, hot off the press. We took it to Zoomtopia. We couldn't not. And sure enough, it was running Smart Gallery. It was a super cool meeting experience for everybody who was there in the room, or I'm sorry, at the show. Scott, what kind of reactions did you have from folks with View Pro?
Yeah, I think it's really cracking open the multi-camera in a room, right, conversation, which we know is trendy. And, you know, where do these cameras belong? You see some people saying you hang them from the ceiling, maybe it's center of table. But, you know, our whole approach, knowing that a huge majority of the meetings that are happening include some sort of share, right? You are sharing content, you're annotating over it, you're starting a whiteboard. So in the world of meeting plus collaboration, which everyone's trending towards, the focus is still going to be on the content. And any other placement of the cameras in the room, you lose the content, you lose the presenter that's talking over or presenting that content, the collaboration aspect. So that's why I think DTEN View Pro is one of the best answers, right, to solve this problem, because front of room is still, one of the most driven use cases out there when you're designing these spaces. So to get down to the nitty gritty, right, with the View Pro, you get two near field cameras, you get two far field cameras, and that's where you see these colors kind of coverage map the room. And even people to the side where normally the camera would have a hard time picking them up and framing them, our camera are angled. So you still get that face on view from each one of those lenses. All 5 lenses is actually facing people in the room. So our AI is auto detecting them, they're framing them, they're bringing into the shot. And I think the most impressive part is that width and the depth. So in education, you have wide rooms. The kids on either side, right, usually are not really involved in that meeting equity. Our View Pro is covering them perfectly. In a long room that you would normally see in an office building or in an executive setup, our 30 feet cameras are pulling people from the very end of that table. They're bringing them into the gallery without any distortion. And I think that's the big wow moment, right, for the customer, is because they're used to the bar in the room or the device they have getting a really grainy shot of people that are far away. And with the View Pro, the 30-foot person and the 8-foot person look almost identical, right, once they're in that gallery. So the meeting equity is through the roof, and it still allows you to add collaboration aspects and still pick up the equity on both sides of the room by the way we're positioning and deploying these cameras.
Yeah, it's really about engagement, because how View Pro functions, it changes the engagement of users in the room with the remote participants, those far end users. We all got used to the Brady Bunch experience, is what I like to call it, right? Sitting in Zoom. This really takes that experience in the conference room and brings it into the meeting for all of those far end participants. So now you still have that establishing shot giving you the physicality of the space, so you can kind of figure out where everybody's sitting. But when View Pro is paired with Smart Gallery and in the future Intelligent Director, you're really going to start seeing that, hey, I now can pick up, those soft skills in meetings, the facial cues, the hand movements, all of those things that you may lose out when you're just seeing a bunch of people in a space.
Yeah, it's really remarkable, the change to the experience in and outside of the room.
Funny comment I kept hearing at Zoomtopia on the show floor is that folks are saying you can't hide from these cameras, meaning, like, I think a lot of us have meeting rooms in our offices where folks kind of know where they can sit in the room, but they are off camera. It's so comprehensive with systems. There's really no place to hide, whether you're in the back corner or you're like 20 feet away. If you're in the doorway, it's still going to get you and throw you in a box. So
yeah, exactly. And the other thing is there's also an audio component to this as well. And someone asked it in the chat, what about the audio? Well, what we do with our array microphone is we want to give consistent audio in a space. So, and when we say consistent, this is rooms that have typical noise floors, that got good acoustics, and we're not talking like rooms that have got an acoustician that's come in and you've got all the padding. Typical conference rooms, you're going to get consistent audio quality, whether you're right at the display or if you're further back. And depending on where you're sitting, everyone's voice is going to sound the same. And that consistency is given throughout the entire meeting. Our 55-inch is generally well suited for spaces in terms of mic pickup, 20 feet plus or minus 5. The 75 is about 30 feet plus or minus 5. And in most situations, you don't need to have audio DSPs, external microphones and speakers. Our products will work in with vast majority of spaces.
That's kind of what we started with, Abby, was the audio. So we've had multi-microphone, 20, 30 feet pickup ranges, audio boundaries, right? Our hardware technology started in audio, and now we have the opportunity to bring video into that same type of environment. So we're we're talking more about video today because we're already really well known for picking up audio in the room from the all-in-one device. But
Let's talk about the Dual 75.
This is the one, right? This is the show prize winner, most reaction, most demos, most people standing around, right? 3, 4, 5 deep, trying to get a look at how we're bringing, this full experience, right? In a single SKU, in a single product that can hang up in a medium or large size space. And the Dual 75 is kind of a culmination of all the individual technology elements that we've advanced over the last year, and they're all baked into one single device. And it is the highlight, the premier version of our product line. And, why don't we break that down, Jackson, and kind of give them each one of these components and why this product's so unique.
How best to do that with a new product video? We can debut that in just a moment here. So I'm gonna go off camera and I'll go ahead and roll another video. Enjoy.
We've designed our hybrid workplaces to do a great job of accommodating everyone, and we've come a long way. We found ways to stay connected, whether in the office, on the road, or at home. We innovated and pioneered new ways to embrace collaboration and inclusion. And now it's time to reinvent the way we see and are seen by each other. Introducing D10.
I'm just realizing that's the View Pro video again. So maybe I'll follow up with you guys. I'll send you a link to the D7X Dual 75 video that breaks down in more depth a lot of things that we're going to be talking about here in a minute. So I apologize for not having that video lined up for you right now, but let's take a look at what's actually in the D7X Dual 75 system here. So you can see some flyouts on the screen here. We can talk through these. So you've got dedicated space for whiteboarding and then dedicated space for participants. So, one thing we talk about with the D7X Dual 75 is this balance of people and content. So whether you're giving dynamic presentations, you want to be able to show that on the screen, annotate, and whiteboard, or you just want to, flip through or being able to see like your actual participant view there. Right, it's a really nice way to have both those screens lined up. And of course, one thing you'll notice right off the bat, the Dual 75, and this is one of the things that folks walking up to it in the Zoomtopia booth noticed immediately, is that there's a camera right in the middle of the system. This is something that's so unique to the D7X Dual 75. There's really no system that's available today for Zoom rooms that's like it, that has the camera right in the middle. And why is that important, right? A lot of these systems, the camera is mounted below, it's mounted above, maybe it's mounted in a corner somewhere. The participant view on the other end is such that they're seeing the tops of your heads or they're seeing below your necks. It's not a very natural meeting experience. Whereas here we've got the camera right in the middle. So you literally just talk to the screen as if you're having a conversation with somebody, looking them straight in the eye. And then of course it comes with the View Pro on either side, which is mounted at eye level.
Right. This is a big difference maker, right? Something that is not offered, right, anywhere else is this eye level gallery view, right? We're not using a single camera, like you said, on top, so you get that overhead look. Some customers are mounting it below, then you get the up look. I mean, none of those are actually ideal when it comes to meeting equity and providing that, remote experience and mixing everyone up in the room and remotely. So the key to this is to have that thinner eye level camera array. And that's what's getting everyone through the AI, picking the best cameras for the shot, and it's grabbing them, identifying, putting them in Smart Gallery, and having everyone have their own frame. So this is critical, right, to how we're bringing that next level experience into the room. And then you combine that with the multi microphones, you combine that with the forward facing speakers, and then 2 touch panels, right? So you're always involved in that collaboration session without having to give up your gallery view and seeing everyone, right? So this is really where we're tackling those 2 critical aspects of meeting equity and collaboration equity, combined with the top camera tech, and it's all, merged into one single device. So super exciting.
And of course, like with View Pro, we were talking about a minute ago, this system is excellent for just a myriad of spaces. So whether it's super wide, like a classroom, super long and narrow, like some of the meeting rooms, certainly I've been in, it really can adapt to any space, right? Because it includes View Pro on the sides. You have those options of a very wide angle lens or a narrow shot that can get folks from like, 25, 30 feet away. It's so flexible of a system to deploy in any space.
Absolutely. And, we're really excited. We've had multiple deployments, right, out in the field. We have many customers that have already deployed this. They're ordering more. It's definitely, causing a lot of, rethinking on design and do we really need to have all this component-based stuff and overbake these rooms, when this device is bringing everything that you're looking for into a single SKU that you can hang on the wall. So really innovative stuff on our side. I'll take a second here, Jackson, and just run through a couple Q&A. So currently, Rick, the Dual 75, it is optimized, right, for people plus content. We're going to stay there for the time being without exploring any larger sizes. The great thing about this device and most of our devices being Windows based, it does allow you to feed out into a projector or something if you do need a larger viewing presentation. But the 275 touch panels are optimized for the advanced whiteboard and the gallery view. Also on some audio. So, we have someone saying, right, exceptional audio from the D10 device. Our AI is constantly processing the audio, running DSP. There's a little bit of an issue right now with conflicting DSP and the interop with direct guest join. So it's definitely being worked on, and we have some resources with both Zoom and Microsoft to control kind of the DSP that's happening on both sides. But that's where that issue is coming from. So it'll be resolved very shortly. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to push out an update to provide that same D10 offloaded audio, regardless of the platform that you're happening to join. So give us a little bit more time and we'll have that fixed for you.
Well, I think we overpacked this slide deck because I still have quite a bit to run through, but we're at the 56-minute mark. What I want to do right now is jump into giving you guys an info about our DTEN Engage program. So super easy to do. And once we talk a little bit about Engage, Scott, I'm going to hand it off to you. I want to go back and then we can talk about the D10 Mate POE. Certainly something I want to touch on, but I know you guys, we just talked about, only having this webinar for an hour. So Scott, tell us a little bit about Engage and then we'll jump back into the deck for anybody that's willing to stick around with us for a few more minutes.
Yeah, definitely. So Engage, we launched with Zoom in partnership about 2.5 years ago. We've worked with almost 500 customers to try a D10 device in their own environment. What's crazy is over 9 out of 10 of these customers actually changed their deployment plans and moved from a component-based system into an all-in-one D7 environment. So, we are very adamant that to move from Zoom rooms to Zoom rooms for touch, you really need to be able to touch it. These are hands-on meeting rooms, a lot of collaboration, a lot of interactivity in the space. So we highly recommend that you test drive one in your own environment, right? Until you get it in an executive office or a meeting room, or you're deploying a workspace reservation map and reserving your rooms from that. It's really just a huge game changer in how you start to think about your deployment plans and the devices that you're going to choose. So we have a link right there. It's super easy, d10.com engage. You'll see some use cases like, do you want a touch meeting room? Do you want a virtual receptionist? Because we're not really here to pitch a product. We're here to solve your use case and really help you with solutions that you're able to deploy, from home to the lobby, to the hot desk, to your meeting room. So take a look at that. It'll show you all your options that we work with to deploy that successful strategy with Zoom. It takes about 2.5 minutes to fill that out. and we follow up here today or tomorrow, and we give solution expert help, we design help, we work with your Zoom and your Zoom Rooms rep, and we really bring the full thing together and give you a really exciting experience in your own environment. So highly recommending that test drive. Like I said, only takes a few minutes to sign up, and hundreds of logos and customers have made the change after going through the program.
And that's a good segue into one of the questions we had about who our top competitors are. And it's a real hard thing because it's about use cases, and that's the right product for the project. So we meet a lot of use cases that our competitors don't meet. And, there are the Logis of the world and the Beats and the Yelinks and so on. There's certified manufacturers for Zoom. We all play in the same space. We all use the same software. We all tackle hardware a little bit differently. So when it comes down to the use case, it really comes down to, trying DTEN. Does it work in your space? The vast majority of rooms and environments we work great in, but there might be some unique use cases in your environment where we're not going to be appropriate for. Big giant auditoriums, systems where you may need to use a component-based Zoom room environment where you have multiple levels of audio video matrix switching, or you may need an enhanced audio DSP with tons of microphones. DTEN can be a component of those types of systems, but sometimes we may not be best suited for them. So it's really, reach out to your DTEN sales, associate, your channel partner, any one of us here in the call. We can really help you kind of figure out which DTEN product, which DTEN use case works the best for your own situation.
Yeah, well said. So we're past time, but there's quite a few folks that are still hanging out with us, which thank you so much. Absolutely. I really appreciate the extra time you guys are giving us. Let's jump back into the deck now and talk about Mate PoE. So Mate PoE, we had, I think, 5 of these in the booth. Each D7X had a Mate PoE tied to it. The Dual 75 had one actually at the reception desk, which is super cool. So this gives you that convenient control room management at the tabletop. So it just adds a lot more convenience to the room. So you don't have to have folks walk all the way up to the system to interact with it, right? Because a lot of our meeting controls are actually on screen. It's a touchscreen tablet, so it's very familiar, super easy UI running Zoom Rooms controller, ZRC. You can also deploy this as a Zoom Room scheduler, which you see in the picture there on the right, which is mounted to a wall. One thing that's really cool too here is that we include all of the mounts in the box. So the mullion mount is in there. So if you want to mount this to a door frame, you want to use a Zoom Room controller, a Zoom Room scheduler, the mount's already in the box. So you just take it out of the box, install it there. It's super easy to deploy using that one Ethernet PoE cable. So super easy for all the integrators on the call. You should be super familiar with how to deploy a PoE system.
Yeah, the Mate PoE is a Zoom Room controller, Zoom Room scheduler for, hey, I've got a complex network, or I need to have a hardwired controller. It takes the place of, especially if you had a lot of iPad deployments, it can fit right in, as Zoom has sort of deprecated that whole functionality with iPads and so on. It really adds a extra layer of control to a Zoom Room, because there are some features that you cannot do in Zoom Rooms for touch that you can do on a Zoom Room controller. Some of those things are, hey, accessing NDI if you need to do network-based room audio, certain types of configurations, and recall during a meeting. That's really where a Zoom Room controller comes into play. And if you're looking at schedulers as well, this is really where these devices shine.
So let's talk a little bit about Mi Pro. This is our 27-inch desktop device. So the idea going into the Mi Pro is that we take the DTEN meeting experience, we pack it into a personal device. So it's your Zoom Rooms, personal Zoom Rooms for everything you do with the desktop. I've got one on my desk right here. You've probably been seeing me glance at it throughout the webinar. It's just a really nice, dedicated Zoom Room system. But admittedly, the way I use it is as a second monitor with touch, which is super cool because I can immediately annotate and whiteboard on screen. You saw me doing a little bit of that earlier today in the webinar. And we're doing that through a feature called DTEN Smart Connect, which combines the HDMI and the USB into one cable. I'm sorry, it's two cables that go into your laptop. You can sum it into a single USB-C. So you can deploy it as a personal Zoom Rooms device. This is something that I know even Gary Sorrentino at Zoom shared with me that he's got one on his device, on his desk, that he uses for dedicated Zoom calls. So he can join the Zoom call from here, but he has his laptop. He can still be doing work. He can be doing his day-to-day productivity type stuff while still being in a meeting over here. So it's kind of nice to be able to separate that, allow you to do multiple things at once. So of course, like all of our D10 solutions, it has a built-in camera system, has a built-in microphone, touchscreen display, Zoom meeting software is baked into the device. So you don't have to connect it to a PC or anything unless you want to use it, as I mentioned, with D10 Smart Connect. It's also great to deploy into shared spaces like a hot desk environment, or when I had the full office image earlier, you saw some of these in-office phone booths. So you can set up these small little diner style booths, throw a D10 Me Pro in there, and then you've got like an instant meeting space for like 3 to 5 folks going into a room and just having a little quick huddle with somebody on the other end. One of the other cool things, I mentioned this earlier, is that we're using it for workspace reservation on the show floor, which is allow somebody to walk right up to the Me Pro. You deploy this like in your lobby, for example. They can instantly check out the full map of your facility. So you can see that on the screen in the back left, a little bit blurred out. You then can pick one of those spaces, reserve it for an hour or 15 minutes, however long you need it, the entire day if need be. You reserve it right there at the kiosk, so right on the Me Pro, and then it will block out that space and give you a bespoke QR code that you use to check in from your mobile device using the Zoom app. It's so easy to use. We had folks coming in to the show floor. I was showing it all day, reserving, various parts of the Zoomtopia booth. It's very intuitive, very easy to use. You just follow the on-screen prompts, and it's one of these things where now we're used to scanning QR codes. It's not so alien to us anymore, and so it's really, you kind of already know what to do. It's amazing to watch folks just intuitively know how to use this system. So really cool workspace reservation on the Me Pro. It's like these two features are really married together. Last thing I want to talk about is D10 Orbit. So, one thing I think at D10 that we don't really promote enough is the fact that we offer remote device management, user management with every device free. So when you buy the device, comes with a D10 Orbit basic plan. And with D10 Orbit, you can remotely log in to D10 Orbit and see like your device health of all your devices. So whether you're managing multiple meeting spaces, or even if you're managing multiple meeting spaces for multiple customers, you can go in and you can instantly see device health of all of your D10 devices, whether it's working normally or there's something wrong. It will tell you if, like, for example, a camera's offline, or if the system's offline, or if the system isn't working or it's frozen or something. It'll tell you that there's something wrong. So being able to just see all of your room health from a single pane of glass, as we like to say, is super convenient. A couple months back, we interviewed Cape Cod Community College and had an amazing conversation about D10 Orbit, because Cape Cod, if you guys on the call are familiar with it, has very interesting geography, and wherein it's really difficult to get to various locations on the Cape. And their campus is kind of right in the middle of the Cape, and they've got satellite campuses throughout, to where they've got like a very small IT team, and being able to see the device health of all their D10 devices throughout those campuses from their main campus saves them from having to send some guy out, spending an entire day driving to a spot, troubleshooting a device for like an hour and a half, and then spending hours in the car coming back through traffic. So it's just cut that entire problem out of the equation. With D10 Orbit, you've got remote device monitoring, user license management. So if you need to switch licenses over, you can do it very easily right there. You can also manage your product warranties. So you can extend your warranties. You can check your warranty status directly from Orbit. You can also set up advanced parts replacement, and this is your most convenient way to engage directly with DTEN support. So we have a chat bot that runs in Orbit that, I'm sorry, it's not a bot, it's an actual person. When you engage with that chat, you're directly dealing with somebody from our support team. So rapid response with DTEN support through DTEN Orbit. And it's, as mentioned, it comes free as the DTEN Orbit basic plan. DTEN Orbit Pro really expands a lot of these systems. One thing that we launched in the last year is called DTEN Mission Control, which is super cool. It allows you to leverage the DTEN support team to remotely manage your devices, troubleshoot them in the background. You know, you can set this up so we come in like in the middle of the night when your device is running, and we'll actually access the device from the back end. We'll check out the camera health, make sure the microphones are working. We'll make sure it's running the latest software and that everything is up to speed. When this is happening, you'll see there's a dialogue that pops up on the screen, so you'll know that we're remotely accessing it. But it's total peace of mind for IT teams, right? Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. We'll make sure that everything's working fine. And if not, you know, with advanced parts replacement, we'll send you any replacement parts you need before you send the part back to us, so that your downtime is at absolute minimum. You know, Adrian talked a minute ago about some of the differences with DTEN and some other providers of this kind of technology. One thing that's really cool about DTEN is that our systems are built to be modular. So if there's a problem with the AV bar where there's the camera and the microphones, that piece is modular. You don't have to take the whole system off the wall. You can replace that part. The OPS system also is modular. So if there's any part that's having issues, you can replace that part without having to take the whole system down. So we're at 11:11. We still got quite a few folks that are here, which is amazing. So thank you guys. You're the best. Here's where we would have ended 20 minutes ago. So again, if there's something that you saw today in the call that you really want to try for yourself, DTEN Engage is absolutely your best way to try it with Zoom. This is something that we created with Zoom Rooms to make it super easy for you guys to set up a device with a license and try it in your space free. And it's not like free for 30 days. It's a very, I know Scott will say, you have a lot of wiggle room there to really make sure that everybody gets a chance to try it, whether it's you need to run up the flagpole with your C-suite, whoever needs to be the one to actually try it for themselves. We want to work with you to make sure that you get the right people in the room on that one.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And let's see, any last Q&A? I'm going to San Jose. Check it out. Awesome, Abby. Love it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your questions, guys. Thank you, Adrian. Your input has been invaluable in this call. Another perspective is fantastic. Scott, of course, always. Thank you so much. Thank you for your insight on the new Zoom like amoeba ecosystem, whatever it is they're calling it. Really love to see kind of greater context what that means.
Is the Zoomiverse.
The Zoomiverse.
Started to call it. Yeah, it has a nice ring to it, right?
I love it. And of course, thank you guys. Still quite a few of you guys here at the call 11-12. So awesome. You're amazing. Thank you so much. You'll be hearing from me in the coming days. I'm sending you out personal stuff for myself with some links to these videos and the D7X Dual video you weren't able to see, unfortunately, with a link to Engage as well. So thank you guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next month. We'll be doing this again. So thank you, everybody, and talk soon.
Thanks, Jackson. Thanks, everyone.